You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 25th, live. Tropical Storm Yaas is the main feature today as we enter another new day here, day 145 of the year so far. Yaas is the main tropical cyclone active, an enormous cyclone in the Bay of Bengal, just short of hurricane status. 26 storms have formed so far around the world this year so far. 7 days until hurricane season in the North Atlantic, and there are thankfully no areas of interest. Anna is gone. That went away a good 24 hours ago, really. But its remnants lived on just a little bit longer. In the Eastern Pacific, we've got two areas of interest here, a 30% and a 20% in the far eastern part of the ocean. That is towards the end of the 5-day period. Day 4 and 5 mainly, we're looking at both of those systems. They could be taking shape and coexisting as tropical cyclones next week. The Western Pacific looks like this, two more yellow zones, areas of interest. The models have been a bit all over the place with what's going to be going on with the Western Pacific at any time soon. We think there could be a big typhoon on the way. Whether it would come out of any of these two systems, we'll have to see. But what is most set in stone right now is Tropical Storm Yaas in the Bay of Bengal, which is approaching the coast of India. West Bengal is the likely landfall zone for this storm, and it could be at hurricane equivalent status. Here's satellite imagery right now of the Atlantic Ocean, and you can see not much of note really. Frontal system moving through. The northern part of that is what would have killed off Anna in the end. But the Atlantic looking very quiet. Let's just check the Gulf of Mexico as well. You can see it here, and some interesting weather occurring over the United States as well. There's some severe weather occurring this evening. We might well cover that a little bit on this stream if there's some breaking news. The Eastern Pacific looks like this. You can see fairly quiet actually. The tropical thunderstorms in the equatorial region, they're not doing much at the moment, but we'll be waiting to see what emerges off the coast of Central America in the next 4 or 5 days or less. Western Pacific looks like this, so once again fairly quiet, but you can see those two disturbances, very broad and disorganized, that could be contributing to those upcoming systems. Whether any of them form remains to be seen. It looks like it'll be towards the end of the forecast period. You can also see on the left hand side there on the Himawari 8 full disk Cyclone Yaas. In the South Pacific, things look very quiet here. Front moving through Fiji and Vanuatu right now. And now let's look at the North Indian Ocean. You can see quite clearly the rain trail associated with the cyclone, which is very filled out on the south and southwestern side, but northeastern side lacking a little bit. We'll be asking our team why in just a moment. Sea surface temperatures looking fairly warm across the tropical zones, as you'd expect. Warming still in the Eastern Pacific, 30 degrees plus. The Atlantic also looking decent, as I've been commenting on for quite a while now. Western Caribbean as well. Southern Gulf of Mexico to the central part, rather warm, 26 to 28 degrees. Indian Ocean very warm, especially where the storm is right now. Western Pacific looking decent, 30 degrees in the South China Sea and 28 to 30 in the Philippine Sea. And a look at sea surface temperature anomalies along the coast of India and Bangladesh, much above average. Same story for the coast of China, Hong Kong, and northern Vietnam and the northern Philippines. Warm waters off there compared to average. Eastern Pacific is mostly below average apart from one key area near where those invests might form. The Atlantic is warm in the tropics but a little cool in the subtropics, which is interesting to see. That's the pattern we're seeing there right now. My name is Nathan Foy. Here I am right now, and this is our tropical weather bulletin for tonight. Send in your comments and questions whilst we're on the air. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we'll be able to take comments and questions. But first of all, let's introduce our Discord team. There's quite a lot of people here right now. Tonight we have Christian, Ethan, Devon, Farhan, Kenneth, Noah, and Mike. Good evening to all of you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good morning from here.
Evening and morning, depending on where in the world we are. We do have a lot of people around. Let's first talk to Ethan. I think I pick fairly randomly, but I tend to prioritize people who haven't been on in a while. Ethan, you're joining us over there in Indianapolis. Are you looking? I suppose you're looking more towards the Indian Ocean, but you do have a reputation of being the East Pacific watcher.
I do, yes. I've been watching the models very closely over the past few days for the Eastern Pacific, and they do have a few systems developing long range, getting close towards the real news threshold that we have. That's 5 days out. It's getting close to there, but it's not in that region exactly. But if I had to bet, we're going to see a lot of tropical cyclones over the next month in the Eastern Pacific.
Indeed. Farhan, you're also with us this morning as it is over there at your place. I imagine your main focus is Cyclone Yaas.
Yes, indeed, I do. The South Indian Oceans are being quite active this early in the season, and being somewhat local. I live like 2,000 kilometers away, but somewhat local. I feel that I'm sort of obligated to pay attention to it and track it and see the latest development, which has also been very interesting. It's interesting to see because despite what some people have said, the IMD, the Indian Meteorological Department, has done a very good job in forecasting and warning people of cyclones, and they have done so for the past 20 years. And that is very good to see because North Indian Ocean, this basin, used to have fatalities by storm in the thousands, but now that can be reduced to the hundreds, maybe even the dozens, and that's very good to see.
We're looking at imagery of the storm right now. Kenneth, you're on our analysis team, and Devon, you're here as well. I shouldn't forget, you're the leader of our analysis team. I usually float over to Kenneth because Kenneth's usually here, but either of you want to discuss where we're up to with this storm right now? Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start first, and
Oh, Kenneth, go ahead.
let's start with Yaas. And firstly, it's still been suffering from very high shear environment, and that's you see in the satellite imagery. It is pretty much empty in the northeastern side because its models are depicting right now is in 25 knot shear, and it will maintain during early daytime before it drops off as it approaches land. And as we speak of the peak intensity estimates, we're picking it at around 80 to 85 miles per hour as it makes landfall in eastern India near Kolkata, somewhere like that. And you can also see the convection has been shared.
Yes.
Earlier we have this the colder convection is more west, while by ASCAP and SSMI microwave we found that the center is more in the northeastward with peak 0C fixed at around 18.2 north, 89.0 degrees east, which matches with the current wind shear because of the displacement of misalliance of upper level anticyclone, which is at the northern side of the system. While it moves northward, as it moves closer to the UNAC, the shear suffers. Yaas would drop, and it will bring significant rainfall around Right now, we're predicting 15 inches of rainfall, or 775 knots landfall, and right now it's currently CDPS stage 4. Extensive damage is expected to made in eastern India as Yaas made landfall tomorrow.
Now, Devon, this storm is huge, as mentioned by Kenneth there, in CDPS stage 4. Do you want to tell us about it? Or have we just lost him momentarily there? I heard him try to chime in before Kenneth earlier, but we'll come back to Devon. I'm sure we'll hear a word from him a little bit later on. Noah, any thoughts on this storm as you see it right now? Has everyone abandoned me? Where's everyone gone?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Oh.
Nathan. I'm struggling with connection. You caught out on my end literally the whole time.
Sorry about that. We'll have to try and get that work. But Devon, if you can hear me, tell us about your thoughts on the storm, and I'll just let you roll with it.
I'll try my best. Like I said, I'm really struggling with connection right now. I can hear you, but only in bits and pieces.
Okay, well, what makes it a stage 4 on the CDPS?
Right. So with the stage 4 on the CDPS scale, we've got a storm that's a borderline hurricane landfall, hurricane equivalent landfall. The number that I went with landfall is 65 miles per hour. I know Ami went with 70 miles per hour, got a similar result, and JTWC is going 75 miles an hour, which I think is a bit bullish considering that it's going to peak in 12 hours and slowly fall off the table as it moves in closer to land. But anyways, the main thing that we have there is, like Kenneth said, the 15 inches of rainfall looks like that's going to be a significant threat. Of course, this is also a very broad system, a huge system. We're looking at a tropical storm force wind field that's extending well over 200 nautical miles away from the center at the furthest extremity. That is very big. It is a very big storm. So storm surge is, I think that's my biggest concern, especially considering that this is hitting a river delta. This isn't going to have as big of a storm surge as Ampon, or at least it shouldn't have as big of a storm surge as Ampon, since this isn't going to be anywhere close to the intensity. And then you're going to take a look at having 15 inches of rainfall pretty much right at the landfall zone as it's moving inland as well. So it's definitely going to be the most significant threat's definitely going to be flooding, whether if it's going to be from flash flooding due to very heavy rainfall or flooding due to storm surge effects. I think the damages will be split roughly 50-50 there. As far as wind damage is concerned, of course, sustained winds of 70 plus miles per hour with gusts probably higher than that. That can do structural damages to not well-built homes, and especially mobile homes are not going to do very well at all in those types of winds. So in poorly built structures, I would suggest getting to a safer structure to be in.
Yeah. Now, this storm was predicted by models not long ago. It had a phase where the models were taking it much higher than what it looks like it's going to turn out to be. Christian, you're with us as well this evening. Thought I'd introduce you to the discussion. You've been taking a look at that as well over the last few days, and just your thoughts, and especially regarding India in the wake of Cyclone Tauktae last week.
Well, I mean, with Tauktae, we had the western side of India affected, and now this time with Yaas, it's now it's gonna be on the eastern side in the Bay of Bengal this time around. So Hello, sorry, was
I was just saying that literally we're talking about over 100 million people in the country that will have been affected by one of these storms in 2 weeks.
one of two, yeah. It's not good. Initially, I was expecting the worst with Yas, with the sea surface temperatures that were recorded in the Bay of Bengal recently. I believe they were 32. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
So I was initially fearing the worst, but it's not. It's not. Oh, how am I going to put this lightly? It's not. It's basically it's not done what I thought it would do. So, which is a good thing.
Here has really worked its part to limit the intensity of this storm. A lot of models were picking up that was going to start
Yeah.
explosively intensifying yesterday, and that just hasn't happened because of the strong wind shear.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Farhan's screen. You're showing us the surge map, I think that is, from the IMD.
Yes, it is the search forecast as of their bulletin from 5 a.m. IST, which is half an hour ago, and I'm not sure if it's readable or not, but the peak surge here in I don't know how to pronounce that. The
boy.
peak surge in that place is about
Oh, boy.
3.8 meters, or well, close to 4 meters.
And I can't read that from here
Yeah,
either.
Trust me that it's close to 4 meters. Let's just put it at that.
So we're looking at a storm surge of about 15 feet. If I've done that conversion in my head right.
Right, let's just do the viewers justice. I've got a copy here as well. So, Baleshwar in Odisha, that's 2.1 to 3.8 meters of storm surge expected. Basahat in West Bengal, 0.5 to 0.9. Someone's got interference there, by the way. Badrak in Odisha, that's 0.9 to 2.1. Diamond Harbour in West Bengal, 0.5 to 1.1 meters. Kanthi in Purba Medinipur in West Bengal, 0.5 to 2.9. So that could be fairly high as well. There's a few other locations listed there that could get to 1.5 meter storm surge. Farhan switched over to the satellite imagery, and you have a lot of colors at your disposal, if nothing else, on this imagery, don't you?
Yeah, this IMD 3DR site is a bit of a joy, really. Thanks to one of our contributors, Sohum, who actually live in Kolkata, for providing us with this.
That's
It's a
right.
wonderful tool.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll hear from Sohum at another time during this coverage at some point when we're doing more live streaming. It looks inevitable it will be tomorrow or today, later today as it is local time, as we approach 6 a.m. in India. But there is the latest imagery. What can you discern from that infrared?
Well, it has a huge blob of convection which contains a lot of rain, which as it moves closer to the shore, which should be the main concern for the people on shore, because the amount of rain that it will bring will be absolutely massive, and it certainly could cause a lot of destruction and devastation in the areas that are affected.
I mean, yeah, we're looking at, to convert it over to metric for you, we're looking at 350 to 400 millimeters of rain, which would be a roundabout way of saying 15 inches of rain. So 350, 400 millimeters of rain. So it's looking to be really significant. Anytime that you're expecting to get over a foot of rain, that's huge. That is absolutely huge. But yeah, 350 to 400 millimeters absolutely cause flash flooding in low-lying and poor drainage areas, especially in a river delta.
And surely this is going to be a lot more widespread than a typical storm as well, given its size.
Yes, the maximum rainfall seems like it's going to be concentrated in a small area near landfall. That seems to be pretty consistent on both the GFS and HWARF models. However, the actual wind effects and the storm surge effects will be felt very, very far away from the center. I wouldn't be surprised if we see significant storm surge effects going into as far as the Bangladesh-Myanmar border with this storm. I mean, that's just how large this is.
Crikey.
Well, I've got the water vapor imagery pulled up on my screen right now. I just wanted to show real quick how just the moisture bubble that this storm has right now. It is huge, and you think that this is huge? You should have seen it last night. It was massive last night.
Well, that's something else that I noticed on model runs, that it was really huge, and it's likely to actually shrink before landfall, right?
Yes, it's expected to shrink before landfall. That's because the storm is expected to consolidate a little bit before landfall, which is what you would expect storms to do that are around this intensity. Because, I mean, unless you get a really rare circumstance where a storm's coming off of landfall and it's already got a destroyed core and it's trying to recover itself,
Yes. You trailed off there. Let's see if we can take some questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We're here to take them on this live tropical weather bulletin. How does the storm compare to Umpan?
Not really going
in terms of
to
size?
strengthen while being this broad. The system usually needs to contract to a certain degree. And yes, if I remember, as far as in terms of a larger tropical storm force wind radius, at least at a maximum. So it is.
We've got all kinds of issues with Devon there coming in and out, probably vastly
larger,
displaced time-wise to us. Nothing we can do about that. But regarding the question, anyone else just now?
Can you read out the question again?
How it compares to Umpan in terms of size?
I'm not entirely sure how this relates to Umpan. I know that Umpan was a huge storm initially, but it sort of shrunk still as it made landfall in eastern India, right? I think so. If I recall.
It was weakening substantially. I think it did have a fairly large wind field, but I imagine this would be larger.
I do remember this Amphan being. It was big, but it was not this big. I could certainly agree that this was big. This is bigger than Amphan.
Yeah.
So just looking at this imagery, Nathan, I just have a question for you here. Is the blue colors that we're seeing, is that dry air by chance?
Well, it's dry relative to the dark greens, isn't it? It's much that it could be a dry slot there on the eastern side. I'm not as well versed with the. It depends what type of water vapor it is as well. Is it mid-level?
I think it's high level. I think
high level.
It is.
Let's take some questions whilst Kenneth, I think you're doing a bit of thinking there. Will bill form in 20 days? Very specific question by Gary.
No.
No.
We don't know.
There's absolutely no way we should know.
Subtropical storm in the South Atlantic we mentioned on a reply to Sriya's question a long time ago. Have we done a reanalysis on it yet? Are we talking about the brief thingamajig that was in the far south southern Atlantic? I don't know. We've not looked at anything like that just yet. Could the shear persist? And I've just lost. Could the shear persist as well with the broadness?
Absolutely. I know that models right now actually they have the wind shear actually slightly rising a bit in the next 12 hours or so, which might limit some intensification a tad, but relative humidity is going to remain favorable for a bit, pretty much up until it makes landfall actually. but wind shear is going to drop as the storm makes landfall. But landing direction is going to help prohibit some intensification. So right now, if I were to make a forecast cone, I'd actually only forecast a peak of 80 miles an hour.
Yes, it doesn't look like it's. I mean, it is starting to get close to land. It doesn't look like it's going to do much. Much more intensification, I should say.
Yeah, it's only got just over 24 hours left over water, so it's running out of time.
Yeah, I was just noticed there that our bottom bar was still an old one and the new one hadn't replaced the old one yet, so anything that was on it in the last 25 minutes was pointless. So we'll try that again one more time. This is the kind of thing that happens on our live events. It's wonderful. Have there been any periods in which the North Indian Ocean has had significant cyclones during its monsoon season?
Pun?
Yeah.
It's
I
rare.
know that it's rare, but I think, just thinking of some examples here, I know the Pun was one I just said. Was Fani one by chance?
Fani is
No.
one. Ampan is one.
Was it?
It's also in the monsoon season, the first wave of active North Indian Ocean.
And another question there, why does there seem to be an increased amount of activity in the North Indian Basin in the past few years, especially 2019?
I'm not entirely sure, but I just think that conditions overall in the North Indian Ocean are just becoming more favorable, I think.
We were busy that season, weren't we, Ethan?
A bit.
Yeah, Nathan, I think it may have a little bit to do with the climatology of the significant 2015 El Nino, which displaced warm water into the Indian Ocean, which may have created a warm pool in the Indian Ocean over the last few years. And what also became pretty persistent is that we have a Indian Ocean standing wave, basically rising motion of the Indian Ocean, which seems to increase tropical cyclone genesis there. And just climatologically speaking, the last few years appear to be rather favorable for the Indian Ocean.
Certainly has been. That's what we're seeing in its outcome. We will take more questions as we go along, looking at more satellite imagery of the storm right now. This is our main focus tonight. Of course, you can track the tropics in real time on our 24/7 stream when we're off the air at the end of this hour, and you can join our Discord server for real-time tropical chat with our community. And I'm quite liking those colours on Farhan's imagery as well. What are they what are the cloud tops in there? What's the cloud top peaks right now?
Well, the last time I checked, which was actually last night. I haven't actually checked it again before I go to sleep at close to 1 a.m. This morning. I think some of them were minus 80, minus 85, I believe I saw, but that was like 4 hours ago. So for right now, I'm not too sure. I imagine it's still quite high though.
I think it was blowing up some minus 80 towers, if I remember rightly, before I was when I was preparing for this stream. More questions then. Could this bring worse impacts than Tauktae? I'm not sure whether the full impact of Tauktae are known yet.
No.
But yes, no.
I actually think that that the rainfall threat with this system could be maybe higher a little bit than Tauktae, but the wind threat will definitely be lower. But as Devin said, the storm surge threat I think will actually be higher with this storm simply because of the topography of the land that it surrounds the Bay of Bengal. It's really a lot of low-lying areas, so storm surge can really get in there and cause a lot of damage.
If you haven't seen it yet, this is the JTWC track map, and they expect the storm to reach 70 knots just before landfall. That's 80 miles per hour, or That's about 120 kilometers per hour sustained winds just before landfall, and you can see how large the wind field is there. It covers a pretty large part of the Bay of Bengal. In fact, I've not checked the actual numbers, but just to have a look right now, not as high as I thought actually. It looks larger than it is, but still you're talking between 140 and 170 nautical mile winds radius, which is quite substantial. And that, as well as the rain factor, are both things that go into the CDPS rating, which I believe we were saying it's CDPS stage 4.
I think it was very high-end CDPS stage 4, but earlier I saw someone asking where our potential landfall location was for the storm. Most models are in agreement that this will make landfall east of Cuttack, maybe near Paradeep, along the Odisha coast. Maybe near slightly north of there, maybe near Karanjamani. My bad on the pronunciation of that, of course, but maybe in that general area.
Well, yes, we can't claim to be prodigies with the pronunciations, unfortunately, but we do our best, don't we, Ethan? Can Yaas possibly form an eye before it makes landfall, anyone?
Possibly.
Unlikely.
Ooh,
I would say unlikely.
don't know.
Unlikely?
Because
Very unlikely.
Unlikely?
In terms of infrared, it's not that likely that Yaas will form an eye because the shear is too high to clear to form an infrared eye. But in the low level, it still has that possibility. But for mid level and the higher levels, the probability will just decrease.
Okay.
I mean, the storm. I mean, the storm would first have to wrap more convection around the center, and that's pretty unlikely because the shear is expected to rise a bit in the next 12 hours, and even at landfall, the shear is around 15 to 20 knots. That's still a lot.
There's loads more questions that came in just then. I'll try and get through them here. Possible landfall area and impacts. Well,
That's what I was just
from what I was
over.
Yeah, you were indeed, but I was just looking at it again. My guess right now would be between Paradeep and Balasore. Is that what you said?
I think so.
But it looks like it's going to be... I can't tell where the border between Odisha and West Bengal is, but I assume it's going to be near there.
Town that has the highest forecasted storm surge forecast that we shown earlier is right at the border between Odisha and West Bengal.
Wow. Just guesses, but how many inches of rain do you think Yaas will dump? And we mentioned
I think
that
earlier we said 15.
Yeah, we said that
Yeah,
earlier.
we said 15 earlier.
Devon was saying, I think 350 to 400 millimeters at least. So it's going to be a substantial amount of rainfall, and probably over a wide area. Of course, not the full amount in a wide area, but locally rather high amounts could be in large areas, and a widespread issue. There's a question about our website there. Could we post real-time force 13 analysis? Well, I mean, we've got our text advisory team, which is led by Ryan Knack. He does a very good job, but we're always a little bit short, aren't we, with people who do updates around the clock. But we generally do a pretty good job over there. Now, let's see what else we have. Do we think it's rapidly intensifying right now, and what factors are currently hindering it from rapidly deepening?
First off, on the rapid intensification aspect, no. If anything, I think that it might actually due to the increasing wind shear. I think it might actually weaken over the next few hours, just a tad, but nothing too significant. But right now we're looking at increasing wind shear. That's the main inhibit of intensification right now, and perhaps a little bit of dry air intrusion on the east side right now. There's limiting intensification right now.
It looks that way to me. Um,
Yeah.
Is there anything? Oh, this is okay. Is there anything that's catching your eye in the Atlantic basin right now? What are your thoughts on any future North Indian Ocean activity? There's Ethan. Great reaction. Well done. You'll get an award for that. And
Thank you.
what's the current status of the North Indian dipole? Is it favouring the Arabian Sea over the Bay of Bengal for cyclone development? Anyone know on that one?
I think currently it is negative. So we have cold waters in the Arabian Sea. So that would be not favoring the Arabian Sea cyclone activity.
Yes. I think that's everything there just for the time being. Oh, just another one there. Will wind shear remain high and possibly increase even more for the entire time that it's over the Bay of Bengal?
No, I don't. I think shear will peak, and as most models do support, I think that shear is pretty much around here, or in the next 12 hours
Yeah.
or so, it'll peak, and then it'll gradually decrease as it goes.
Yeah, pretty much it's right now models are depicting the shear is peaking almost right now and should be dropping in the next few hours. Slightly, not in a percent. She is still like in 15 to 20 knot at least as it make landfall.
All right, then, shall we take a look at what the GFS, the global model, has been spitting out at the 18Z run?
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's take a tour around the world. First of all, we're looking at the Atlantic. You can see this big extratropical front/storm there, multiple really, that are blending into one. Anna's got sucked into all that somewhere, delivering hurricane force winds to southern Greenland, by the way, just now. But the Atlantic in the subtropics and the tropics is generally pretty quiet. Looking towards the next 7 days, that's what we take a look at with any kind of seriousness, and there is nothing at all to speak of in the Atlantic there. It is very quiet. That's how we like it, especially after last year. So let's check the Eastern Pacific. Now we'll be able to get a good handle here on what's going on in the easternmost East Pacific, and we'll be able to show you when those systems may be formed. Look at that, almost in sync with each other there. You see those rotations starting up here and here. The western one first, and the western one develops itself a little bit quicker as well, and you can see they're both tropical storms. That's on the 29th, so that's just 4 days from now. And the first one, yep, the first one becomes a significant hurricane on the GFS model. Let's just see quite a tight one, and just getting the winds there at least 100 miles per hour. This is no surprise, by the way, in the Eastern Pacific. This happens at this time of year, maybe still slightly early. That'll be the 31st of May that we're looking at here, and the other one might be, well, is a Category 1 there. Oops.
Nathan, I just want to let you know that corresponding frame that you've got there on your screen.
Yes.
The GFS actually has the western storm at 953 millibars, so that's
953.
Wow.
a major hurricane right there.
Yeah, I would say so.
Oh,
The other
you'll
one's
be-
what? 980 or 990? I can't see that.
That's 990.
990, so borderline hurricane. So that's that for East Pacific fans like Ethan. That's something to look out for. But they're not going to affect any land areas. Central Pacific quite easily gets glossed over, but I can tell you it's going to stay quiet. Western Pacific, this is where a lot of uncertainty lies right now with these two potential systems. Well, first of all, we need to talk about Vietnam, because we have, well, 97W I think is still located somewhere around here. And whilst this whole area we're watching for potential development and indeed heavy rainfall from this invest, It doesn't look like it's going to develop into anything in terms of a tropical cyclone. You can see maybe a weak circulation either there or there, as it moves up into the Gulf of Tonkin, and then
It's to east. The center depicted is to east.
so you think
As
it's
from
more of a
radar
land?
indicated, it's pretty much models has been wrongly uh initialized as eastward, and from Vietnam radar and Hong Kong Observatory weather map, it already has a circulation. I've marked it at around 15 degrees north and 108 degrees east, which is inland in Vietnam,
Inland.
and as it keeps in northwestward, and it pretty much will be dead. That's why 90 Invest 97W in Vietnam we've marked it at 0%. At this right now cast and forecast it will be still inland, and will not have any tropical cyclone developments.
Yep. Philippine Sea. We're watching two areas right now. We just went through the sequence there. This area here, there's some potential rotation there. There's a low chance of development right now, for maybe a spin up near the Philippines. You can see that, Ethan.
That area of interest that you're highlighting there, Nathan, that actually does become a tropical cyclone, sort of in the medium range of the GFS, and that pushes up towards the
Well, yeah, look,
northwest, and then that system up to the east
moving
actually
this
develops
way.
and becomes a significant typhoon, actually.
And there it is. It's all getting swallowed up into this big system. So it goes round there, becomes this tropical cyclone. Looks like it's going to be a large one, but that's near the end of the model run. Becomes a tropical storm, heads towards the Philippines. Behind that, what you have, at least depicted by the model, and this could change, is this other area here. The energy associated with that will join the other storm, the other area that will become this big thing. But behind that even is another area that, in fact, I think it goes up from the near the equator, heads up towards Guam, and there it is becoming a tropical nope, there it is becoming a tropical cyclone, and then heading off towards the probably northwest, but that's late in the model run. At the minute, nothing concrete in the Western Pacific.
The long-range GFS for that system near Guam that you're highlighting there, Nathan, the GFS actually peaks that at 935 millibars.
There
Oh,
it is.
wow. Wow.
There it is.
It's not exactly unique. The GFS has been spinning up monster typhoons for quite a while.
It's
And they
yeah,
usually
they've
go away
This
after
is
a few
this is
runs,
typical
so
for
it's not
GFS.
exactly worth noting for
No.
now.
All
But
right.
still, that's quite impressive. But, you know.
Now to this big mess here, the Indian Ocean. GFS at the initialization is actually depicting that as having hurricane force winds, would you believe? But I'm not so sure on that. However, what you can notice from this is just how large and widespread the wind field is. It extends, you know, we're talking about gusty winds all the way down here, about 200 miles south of Sri Lanka, which is pretty incredible. Tropical storm force winds in the green there. You can say that's associated with the storm, sort of. Certainly its energy, but these areas here definitely directly part of the storm, and you can see the southwestern and to set towards the south side are the most intense, at least according to this. Is that what we're seeing in reality?
Yeah.
I think so, but that southern blob that you highlighted, east of Sri Lanka, the GFS actually sort of
What?
does something with it, and it actually becomes a southern hemisphere tropical cyclone, actually.
What?
Well, yeah, I was getting onto that.
Yeah,
It's
that's
been the GFS has had a southern hemisphere cyclone for some time. So let's just follow Yaas first. There it is. So keeping near hurricane force makes landfall. Let's just try and get a landfall location. It will change, so don't look too much into that. That landfall looks like it would be just maybe 10 or 20 miles south of Balasore, and then moves inland. And off it goes. So, southern hemisphere. Finding that energy, you can see there it initializes sort of part of the system, Cyclone Yaas. There it is. And then there's some energy that becomes a cyclone there, which is very odd. And yes, there it goes. It does a loop-the-loop. And
Yeah,
there
that
it
comes
is.
from
Quite a
the
peculiar situation.
that comes from the
Mm.
west. Those tropical storm force winds near Sri Lanka come from strong westerly wind bursts, and that is apparently what makes the tropical cyclone genesis in the southern hemisphere.
Do you think it's likely?
Uh, I don't think it's likely because it's so far out of season.
It is quite a
Yeah,
it's out of
I have to
season.
concur with Noah. I've just pulled up the European model on tropical tidbits here for the Western Pacific, and interestingly enough, just about 6 or 7 days out, there's that Philippine Sea system. So perhaps seeing a little bit of vorticity, or model agreement with the GFS on this, perhaps.
Not keen though, is it? It's hardly showing anything big there. The ECMWF,
Yeah,
I
maybe
think, has been.
weak system.
I can't remember how it did with some of those bigger storms, Surrey particularly, but I know when GFS is always saying there's going to be a big typhoon, ECMWF, from what I've seen, has said there's been nothing at all. It's on board with that hurricane as well there.
Yeah, interestingly enough, it actually doesn't look to peak that as a very strong storm. I'm just getting the pressure now. Oh wow, that's actually a lot weaker than what the GFS is showing. Only a probable tropical storm at peak.
Well, there we go. That will rain on Ethan's parade. Now let's take a look at the South Pacific, because there was still those rumblings about whether we'd see any subtropical or tropical activity to the northeast of New Zealand. You can see right now we've got another pretty big extratropical cyclone here, delivering tropical storm force winds to the northeastern side of the North Island. Looking forward there, it actually develops hurricane force winds, and then that little area there remains to be seen whether that doesn't look like it to me. And then there's that little area again. Let's just try and get the simulated. Where are we?
IR?
Try and get the simulated reflectivity on this. Might tell us something. I don't know. That'll load in a minute. Whilst we wait for that, we'll see if we have any more questions. There was one or two. Are any of the forecast models indicating any near-term tropical cyclones in the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific basins? Well, we sort of just went through all of that. Would this year have 3 or more sub-900 millibar storms, mostly in the Western
Well, we
Pacific?
already had one.
We've had
Stay
one,
with us,
yeah.
Warm. Or
If
do
I
you
had
think
to,
so?
if I had to guess, yes.
Wow.
If
But
I
it's not-
personally had to, if I personally had to guess, I say that there's a very, very slim chance of one in the Atlantic. Don't get your hopes up though. Very, very small chance for one. But I think if we're going to have another one, it's going to be in the Western Pacific this year.
Yeah,
Perhaps
we've already had
October,
one in the.
perhaps.
We already had one in the Western Pacific this year, being Surrey. 895, I believe that was. Again, correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't recall what the intensity we gave it. I know that we gave it 185 miles an hour. I'm not sure on that pressure remark though, but
Yeah, the
We
pressure
give
was
it
right.
185, 895, exactly.
895. I was the one who covered that video up to me. I remember that well. Yeah, 185, 895.
So that New Zealand thing, I'm not convinced by that, honestly, and we've not.
I'm
marked
not
it
either.
now. We did mark it ages ago. Just showing you the reflectivity looks on the on Cyclone Yaas, and you can see how the yellows simulated, of course, but extending way inland. So, in fact, let's just get now the rain accumulations. That's the last thing we'll look at on the model section here. we're getting into a little bit of a routine now on the tropical weather bulletins. So in a moment we'll see the... Okay, that's not what I expected to see. It's going to be more than that. There it is. I think this is the right one. Just double checking. Right, so this is the 7-day rainfall forecast. Now, unfortunately, it is only in inches, so I'll have to do conversions. So near the storm center, it's calling for 13 to 14 inches. Near landfall, looking at about 12, 13, okay, 14 there. So pretty much what we've been saying. But yes, you can see going inland, rainfall amounts 5 inches all the way up to the foothills of the Himalayas. 4 to 5 inches there. That's over 100 millimeters widespread from this storm. All those yellow zones over 100 millimeters of rain in the next 7 days. And the monsoonal patterns, look how much it's causing in terms of rainfall for the coasts of Thailand and Malaysia probably, but the northwestern tip of Indonesia as well. Small pocket there of 20 inches. Looking towards Vietnam with that system, doesn't look like there's going to be much more rain now. 3 inches inland. Along the coast of Thailand, though, eastern Thailand, 20 inches there as well. I don't think that's associated with either of the storms. For the Philippines, not looking too wet anytime soon. Let's just go right across to the, you can see quite clearly the hurricane tracks there in the eastern Pacific, and they look like they're going to deliver a lot of rain as well, but of course it's over open water, so nothing will be of note regarding that. And I think that's the full model section. So I'll throw it back to the team right now. Anything that we want to bring up in real time?
I'm not sure if you have this animated in your piece there, Nathan, but do you have what happened on this day, perhaps?
That comes at the end, Ethan.
It's coming, don't worry.
Yeah.
An interesting point that I like to point out is that throughout yesterday and today, the local media, Indian media, has been circulating a statement from the Chief Minister of West Bengal. It's basically the equivalent of governor for a state or a province. She's been saying that the impacts of Yaas in West Bengal could be more severe than Amphan. Is that something that's actually based on reality, or is that just something she said to get more people to evacuate? Well, that's up for debate, but that's certainly an interesting statement to see.
Yep, and we've got to be armed with the concern that it could be worse than Amphan, even though it's expected to be weaker. Of course, Amphan was a Category 5 at peak, weakened to a Category 2 by the time it made landfall. This is expected to be Category 1 at landfall, but bigger. So areas that weren't affected by Amphan may be affected by this storm, certainly further towards the west, northwest, when it makes landfall, moves inland. I'm not sure, will Kolkata get strong winds? What are we thinking about there?
I think it'll probably get tropical storm force winds, but nothing too big.
Could the Atlantic be more active than the West Pacific this year, is another question.
No.
No.
No,
No.
not again,
No.
not again.
Yeah,
Again.
because I'll explain. Because in 2020, there's a very strong La Nina, as well as the MJO, which signifies which basin will have more tropical activity at that moment. In 2020, it's both La Nina and MJO significantly favors the Atlantic and just keeps the Atlantic have many storms, such that we have most named storms on record and many rapid intensification. But in the West Pacific, suffer from a phase A MJO in 2020 is just dead, because it's supposed to be an active month. The MJO just say, okay, West Pacific needs to be dead. But in 2021, the La Nina situation has weakened significantly now to a cold neutral, which favors a bit more about Pacific activity. This is the first thing. And the second thing is the MJO is not supposed to be to go reverse again like 2020 and back to the Atlantic. Pretty much not really that will happen this year. So it should be back to normal, that norm that the West Pacific will be more active than the North Atlantic, same as 2021.
Well, time
I mean,
flies. It's time for our final thoughts on the whole picture right now in the tropical world, and of course the main feature, Cyclone Yaas. I think Noah, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something about the Westpac and Atlantic activity. I mean, we're expecting an active Atlantic hurricane season, but a usual average Westpac season is about twice as active as an average Atlantic season. So the Westpac had to be incredibly inactive this year to be least active than or less active than the Atlantic, and that's really not what we're seeing.
All right. Well, at that point, I think we're going to finish proceedings for tonight on this tropical weather bulletin. You can, of course, contact us if you have any questions, or if you'd like to, for any inquiries at all, you can send a message through our email, contact@force13.com, and of course our social platforms on Facebook and Twitter. That was our team on our right hand side there. They've been with us for the last hour, Christian waving at us there, and it's been great to have them on board again. We will probably have another live tropical weather bulletin tomorrow. But before we go away, let's just take a look at what happened on this day, May 25th, 2014. We had Hurricane Amanda, which was peaking as a Category 4, nearly a Category 5. Also in 2012, there was two, I think it was Bud and Sanvu in the Western Pacific, and we also had the beginnings of Beryl on this day. There was another one. There was some storms in 1961 as well, but I can't remember all of that in my head. Amanda was the main feature on this day in 2014. So, looking towards our next named storms, the next name on the Atlantic naming list is Bill, followed by Claudette. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Blanca, followed by Carlos. In the Central Pacific, we're still waiting for Hone. Oh, I thought they were going to say something there. Western Pacific, next name on list 4 is Choi Wan, followed by Koguma. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next name now is Gulab, after we're finished with Yaas, but that's not going to be very quick because we've still got quite a lot to deal with that. In the Australian region, the next name is Paddy. The Southwest Indian Ocean sees Kanga, or it might not if we get to July 1st without seeing it. And in the South Pacific, the next name on the list is Cody. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow night.